The East Carolina Pirates are up next for 2023 predictions. We continue looking at teams in the American Athletic Conference. This is a team that could be rough sledding this year. There's a lot of adjustment to be made, especially with the loss of many talented players on the offensive end. Defensively, there are some holes to fill as well, and the schedule, especially in non-conference, could bite this team. However, still expected to be a fairly competitive team this season, and Mike Houston is a really, really good head coach. So can East Carolina overcome their offensive losses into a successful 2023, or is this team going to struggle and maybe miss out on bowl eligibility this upcoming season? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel, previewing and predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams this summer. Guys, it means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. But guys, there are many more ways than that to help me support my channel. You're doing one right now by watching the video. You guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you can think of that you're willing and able to do to help me support my channel. Cannot thank all of you guys enough for the growth support on the channel this summer. Let's dive in to predictions for the East Carolina Pirates. Hey, how do we do preview predictions around here? Well, we're going to go through a roster overview and look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Pirate football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you your East Carolina Pirates here in 2023. And again, offensively, well, you lose someone key in pretty much every single position, and it starts out with the quarterback position. Holton Ahlers was fantastic for his tenure as an East Carolina Pirate, and you're going to be missing him big time. He had 3,708 yards, 28 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions on 67% completion percentage. Huge loss. He's a very experienced option at the quarterback position that will no longer be playing football for East Carolina. Who do you return to this team, though? Who's going to be battling it out for quarterback supremacy this year? Well, that's going to be down to Mason Garcia and Alex Flynn. Mason Garcia did throw 12 passes last year, 54 yards, but nothing more than that. And Alex Flynn did not throw a pass last year, but should be competing for that quarterback spot. I believe Mason Garcia to be the better of the two options, although, again, not going to shock me to see Flynn end up winning that starting job. I believe it to be Mason Garcia, but we'll see what the head coach Mike Houston has in store for the Pirates team at the quarterback position. Running back wise, you do lose Keaton Mitchell, and that is a substantial loss. He had 201 carries last year for 1,452 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground, not to mention Holton Ahlers' rushing ability, 182 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns on the ground for him last season. But there still is some really good talent in this running back room, as Marlon Gunn and Rajai Harris. Rajai Harris especially, very talented back. He only had 238 yards, 5 touchdowns last year, while Marlon Gunn had 344 yards, no touchdowns. Both of them had the exact same amount of carries last season. They will highlight the running back room as well as a transfer coming into this program. He's a 3-star all the way from Georgia Southern in Gerald Green. When you take a look at this wide receiver room, well, you see some pretty big losses here as well. Isaiah Winstead and CJ Johnson, coincidentally, your top 2 leading receivers from a year ago. Oh, and both of them over 1,000 yards. Winstead, 1,085, 6 touchdowns, and Johnson, 1,016 yards and 10 touchdowns last season. 2 substantial losses in that wide receiver room. However, there still are some solid pieces coming back. Jalen Johnson had 340 yards and 4 touchdowns last year, and Josiah Hatfield returns to this team as well. Only 11 catches last year, but did have 178 yards. That's more than 15 yards per catch. And you get some transfers in to help cushion the blow of Winstead and Johnson. CJ Johnson, that is, leaving this team. That is Keelan Robinson and Chase Sowell that are entering this program. Sowell entering in from Colorado and Robinson in from Kansas. When we take a look at the tight end room, well, Ryan Jones, a big part of this offense last year as well, is also gone. 413 yards and 4 touchdowns from the tight end position. You do return Shane Calhoun, who was pretty solid for the team last year, and Tyler Savage should be the backup role in the tight end room this year. And on the offensive line, Avery Jones leaves, but you have Parker Moore and Isaiah Foote still there, as well as some transfers like Dustin Hall and Owen Murphy. I think it's going to be tough sledding for this offense for the first couple of weeks as they adjust to life without a lot of these very talented offensive players. But defensively, What are we looking forward to with the Pirates this season? Well, starting out on the defensive line, you do lose Emmanuel Hickman and Chandre Mims off of this team. And taking a look at what they did last year, Hickman, 24 tackles and 1 sack. Mims, 16 tackles and 5 sacks. Yeah, only 16 tackles, but 5 sacks that did lead this Pirate defense last season. You do return a lot of talent on the defensive line, though. Chad Stevens, Elijah Morris, and Deonta Johnson all come back to this team. And when you take a look at the linebacking unit, well, there are some pretty substantial losses here as well, as Miles Berry, Chance Bates were both top 6 tacklers for this team. Berry 65 tackles with 3 sacks. Bates tacked on 51 tackles and an interception last season. Reading the wrong line there. Words are hard, I apologize. And then Xavier Smith gone as well, 47 tackles and a sack and a half last season. As for who returns, Jeremy Lewis, your 4th leading tackler last year, 4.5 sacks, again, 2nd on the team. From last season. Jack Powers is coming back there as well. He had 25 tackles and a sack, along with Mike Edwards, Taylor Jackson, as well as a plethora of transfers coming in here. BJ Davis has entered this program, along with Ra Dillsworth. He's coming over from North Carolina. That's a former 4-star coming out of high school. BJ Davis coming over, by the way, of South Carolina State. Then you have Tyquan King, who is coming over to this program as well from North Carolina A&T. So some pretty solid transfers coming in. But this secondary, man, while it does have some good pieces coming back that we'll get to in a minute, there's a lot leaving this secondary. Gerard Stringer, 2nd leading tackler, did have an interception last season. Jere Wilson, who was also spectacular, 2 pass defended, 2 interceptions for the secondary season ago. Malik Fleming, 6 pass defended, 3 interceptions. And then Juan Powell, who had a pass defended and an interception last season. You do get some nice pieces back, though. Julius Wood and Tegan Wilk were both top 5 tacklers for this team. Wood with 4 pass defended, 2 picks, one of those being a pick 6. Wilk had 5 passes defended, and again, both of them top 5 tacklers. You do have a freshman in Antoine Jackson who enters a top 400 recruit according to 24/7 Sports, and a lot of transfers as well. Omar Rogers, Dontavius Nash, and Tymere Brown all enter this program. Nash and Brown, both of which from North Carolina. Your head coach is Mike Houston, offensive coordinator Donnie Kirkpatrick, defensive coordinator Blake Harrell, as we take a look at the Pirates football schedule for 2023. Hey, any game you see at home is going to be underlined, and any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game I think East Carolina will win fairly easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, okay, I think they're going to struggle a little bit, or the other team will put up a fight. Maybe it's a close competitive game, but I still see the Pirates walking out with the dub, and red, it is a loss. Pirates fans, I hate to do this to you, but we can skip past week 1. Michigan's going to be one of the most talented teams in the country this year. They're my personal pick to win the national championship. Michigan, back-to-back Big Ten title games. That's just a tough draw in non-conference. You're not going to be able to beat the Wolverines in the Big House. And I think life, trying to adjust without Holton Ahlers, Keaton Mitchell, some of those wide receivers like Winstead and Johnson, is going to be hard in non-conference. This is not an easy non-conference slate, as you got 2 very solid teams out of the Sun Belt coming up here. Marshall, you do get this game at home, but I see that as a loss. Marshall's got a lot of nice defensive pieces coming back, and that's just going to be tough for this East Carolina offense to really get moving. I think that Marshall defense will stuff whatever East Carolina is going to do, as Marshall is going to be able to get the road win, in my opinion. And then on the road against App State, I see you losing that one there as well. Same kind of story. There are some pieces on offense that App State is having to replace, much like Marshall, which I did not mention, but there are some good defensive pieces coming back as East Carolina is trying to adjust to life without their offensive superstars that they played with last season. I think non-conference play is going to be pretty difficult for them. I see this team opening up with 3 straight losses. Michigan, of course, one of the nation's most talented teams. And then Marshall and App State, they're really solid teams, definitely in the top half of the Sun Belt Conference from this season. So East Carolina, for East Carolina and for non-conference play, I see that being a struggle, a real struggle. You should be able to beat Gardner-Webb, though, for your first game, or for your first win, I should say, of the season, and then you get into non-conference play. Taking a look at, you get into conference play. My apologies. When you get into conference play, you're 1-3 sitting at, but you get a road game against Rice. Now, Rice is a newcomer to the American this season, but do not count them out. I know I make a lot of jokes about food on my channel, but Rice is going to be a solid football team this year. JT Daniels coming in. He's got some really good pieces, especially at wide receiver, but this Rice defense is what is holding me back from really having that team take some steps forward. I think the offense can be good. The defense definitely got some questions. I think East Carolina in this offense are going to be able to start finding some things now, going to be able to get things moving, and I think this new look offense for East Carolina will be able to take over that defense in the secondary as well, even though they lost a lot, should be solid as well. And I think Rice will go down as East Carolina picks up their second straight win, but I think that's where the win streak ends because you got a game against SMU. Now, granted, there is a bye week before it. It is a Thursday night game. Usually you see the home teams fare really well in these kinds of situations, but I think SMU has too much speed, too much talent. I think they're going to be able to run all over East Carolina, and while I don't think it's going to be a blowout necessarily, that's not what I was implying. Again, too much speed for SMU. They got a lot of athletes offensively, defensively. I don't think East Carolina's going to be able to keep up. That is a loss for me, but they should be able to beat Charlotte. That's a team I do not project to be very good at all this season. I think they're going to struggle mightily in their first year in the American. They need some things to start going right for them in order to build back up. That's an easy win there. But your next two games, well, are the two favorites in the conference. On the road against UTSA and then at home against Tulane. I have you losing both of those games. UTSA is very, very talented this year. You got Frank Harris coming back, and even though Zachary Franklin has went and transferred to Ole Miss, a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. Defense should be solid as well. I don't think the Pirates are going to have much of a chance on the road against UTSA. Same kind of thing with Tulane. That defense was spectacular last year. Should still be that way in 2023. Michael Pratt comes back, and while you have to replace Tajee Spears and your two leading wide receivers, there's still a lot of talent. Offensively. Willie Fritz is a phenomenal head coach. Tulane is going to be another spectacular football team this season, and I see East Carolina losing their second straight game. So when you look at the schedule already, that's 6 losses for East Carolina. So they would have to win out in order to make a bowl game here, and I just don't see that happening. I think you go on the road and lose to Florida Atlantic. That's another newcomer to the American Conference this season, but you know what? They're going to be pretty solid. Aside from that team maybe lacking the necessary depth it needs to be a true contender in the American Conference, when you look at the first, maybe even second strings, that's a really good football team that returns quite a bit of talent. And if you look at what they did in the transfer portal, hey, Casey Thompson comes in. That is a former Power 5 quarterback now playing for the FAU Owls. He's going to be a very good option for them at quarterback. I think he's going to have a pretty good season, if not a spectacular season there. The Owls got Tom Herman. That's a guy that thrives in the group of 5 program role. I see FAU being able to beat East Carolina and Casey Thompson maybe being able to take advantage of some of the weaknesses in the secondary, although East Carolina is going to have everything figured out by this point in that secondary. They got a lot of transfers coming in to fill those roles. Then you go on the road and play Navy. And while I do think Navy's an improving team in the American Athletic Conference, you got a new head coach coming in there, maybe a little bit of a new system with that. I still do not think they're quite up to standard to compete with some of these higher teams in the American Athletic, like East Carolina. See that as a win for the Pirates. And I also think they beat Tulsa last game of the regular season. I don't really know what to make of Tulsa this year. That's a team that I could see being pretty good. It's also a team I could see being pretty bad. You got Kevin Wilson coming in at head coach. There's some pretty good pieces there with that team. Going to be an interesting team to watch all season long. But I got East Carolina at 5-7. Now, maybe if they can pull off a win somewhere, like maybe they beat Florida Atlantic, which I think they can. Maybe they beat one of those 2 Sunbelt teams, which I think they can. This is still going to be a competitive team, even though they're trying to replace a lot of pieces offensively and try to fill in some of those gaps in on the defensive side, especially in that secondary as well. I still think this is going to be a very competitive team, but I think they just lost too much offensively to be able to go bowling again in 2023. However, could definitely see it. Going to be a very interesting year for Mike Houston's squad. That's my thoughts on the Pirates. Let me know yours in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video.